Hey y'all, welcome back to Poplar Creek Farm. I cannot believe we are already in July, so I'm going to show you guys what the July garden is looking like. Early July in upstate New York, Zone 5B, is still taking off. We're not really harvesting a ton yet, but we are harvesting something, so I'm going to show you guys what we are harvesting and how everything else is doing. I want to start up here with the green stalk because I am in love. This thing is beautiful. Oh my goodness gracious, like, can you even? So these are everbearing strawberries. They are taking a little break right now. I'm hoping we will get another harvest in another couple weeks. Some of them have been putting off like one or two, but probably take a little while. I'm going to fertilize this tomorrow. I watered it this morning and then I was like, oh shoot, I should have fertilized it. So I'm gonna do that tomorrow. Things that are still doing well, surprisingly, is lettuce. It has been so hot here and I don't know how the lettuce is okay, but it's been doing awesome. My herbs are doing really well. Some mint, lavender, chamomile I've been harvesting off of. I forget what I had here. Oh, spinach. And that didn't do well. And I tried to transplant one of the runners of these strawberries and it didn't work. It died. So I still have an open spot there and I have one other open spot that I'm going to try to fill. We got some parsley, some sage, cilantro obviously. Cilantro obviously went to seed, but I'm letting it go to seed completely so I can harvest for coriander. One little strawberry. My husband mowed the other day and I grabbed a bunch of the grass clippings. I just haven't had a chance to put them around. So I'm probably gonna do that either today or tomorrow. Get those around some of the tomato plants that we just trellised up better and pruned. So first here in the garden is my extremely weedy strawberry bed. I am gonna get on this this week, take care of all the weeds in here. This is my June bearing strawberry patch, so they're done for the most part. There's like one or two little plants or one or two little strawberries still going in here, but these are pretty much done for the season and I just need to take care of these weeds, especially this one, ragweed. Oh, bothers me so bad. Got a bunch of beautiful sunflowers over there that are doing super well. We have celery. Celery's taken a while. I feel like it's kind of slow. It's not really harvestable yet. Hopefully soon though. Got a little broccoli that's somehow not to seed yet. Broccoli that did go right to seed. But these are all seed pods once they dry. So I might save some of those because I'm actually going to be planting more brassicas for fall this week. This cabbage here got damaged by some frost and it's just really ugly. But it's totally functional. It still will be edible. So I'm going to harvest this probably very soon because it hasn't really grown a whole lot. And so I will harvest this and that one and make something with them. This was the cabbage that we had harvested. Brussels sprouts. They will take quite a while. We won't get anything for months, really, until probably fall. That one's like so tightly growing. And this one you can see the Brussels sprouts. You can see them starting in the armpits. Bunch more broccoli that has gone to seed, which is fine. It is totally fine. Not surprised. My onions are doing amazing. Look at that. This is not a big onion variety, Rosa di Milano. It's not a big onion variety, so that's a really good size actually. But all of my onions are doing really, really well, and I'm very happy. There's actually one that's like huge. It's a white onion. Look at that thing. That's beautiful. So once these start falling over, then we will know that they are about ready to harvest. There are some that are starting to fall over down there. My husband was helping me plant these and he didn't separate out a lot of them. So there's ones that have like multiple in the holes and that's fine. Some of them did really well even with that. I want to say real quick, so my husband helped me with those, plant those. He helps me with a lot of stuff in the garden. Get you a man who will help in the garden. Seriously, I am so thankful for him. He's the one who typically weed whacks in here, although I really do need to this week. He helps me plant, he helps me till, he helped me with the tomatoes, all 4 rows of tomatoes he helped me with. We like just spending time together. We actually enjoy being with each other. So He loves coming out here and helping just because it gives him more time to spend with me. It's not necessarily he wants to help in the garden or he likes gardening. It's the fact that he just wants to spend time with me. And so I'm really lucky that he does that for me. Next row is my carrot row. This I weeded a bit ago. There are still a couple that are planted close, like these two are planted kind of close together, but at this point, whatever. I did thin a lot of them, but that is all carrots and they are all doing well. Volunteer sunflower. It looks like the bed is really weedy down there, but it's just the walkway's kind of encroaching, so they need to be weed whacked. Next we have beets, which are also doing wonderful. My kids have been coming out here and harvesting them occasionally. They did harvest a bunch of little ones one day, which I was not too happy about, but they're just trying to help. And my daughter especially loves beets. This section right here, I'm not sure what's going on. There's like a deficiency right in this one area because these are all really small in comparison. So we had, these are Zeppo F1, which is like a Detroit red beet. Then we had Kyoga, which I've always called Chioggia beets, but it's Kyogi or Kyoga beets. I'm probably still saying it wrong. But I never knew I was saying it wrong until just recently. That one's pretty good size there, getting there. And then we had golden beets. The golden beets are pretty much done at the end, and that is where the beets actually ended, so that's why I didn't weed all the way down. The pea trellis is not going spectacular. This section just did not want to cling on to this, and it kind of fell over at one point. So they just kind of stayed down, and this section looks beautiful. And we'll probably get another week or two of peas off of these, and then they're gonna start dying back because it's hot. And so we will pull these and then we will re-sow beginning of August for a fall harvest. This is also peas. This is also, they're falling over and these ones are starting to die a little bit more. Here's radishes. The radishes are all bolting. I pulled a ton out. There's still a few in there that I'd missed. And I'm just gonna reset that area. This area that is super, super, super weedy is also beets, and I need to come in here and thin and weed. That's a ground cherry. I just noticed that. I thought it was a weed initially. That's a ground cherry. You're not supposed to be here. But I just have to come through and weed, and I'm gonna do beets all down here as well. Back here is supposed to be, you can actually see them, kohlrabi. These are kohlrabi, but again, super weedy, and this one might just get reset because it is just so crazy weedy. So over from the peas and beets and radish row is our squash, and then, like I said, kohlrabi's back there. Squash is doing well. I do need to get in here and weed. I mean, that's kind of the theme of my garden. I am on top of weeds a lot more than I ever have been, so as much as it is weedy, it's better. The only thing with the weeds in here, so this is a zucchini. It's called Haifa's Finest. It's from Fruition Seeds. I love this zucchini. I think it's much better than the typical dark red. It doesn't produce as many as the dark red does, or the dark green, not dark red. But this is really wonderful. Ugh. If you guys see this on your squash plants, squish them. Squish them and pop them and get them off. Because this is squash bug eggs. I was gonna say that I didn't really want to weed too much in here because this is mint. And it seemed to be keeping the squash bugs at bay, which is insane. I don't actually know if it was really helping. Obviously not enough because we still have the eggs, but it did seem to be helping some. They have not been bugging them nearly as quickly as they normally do. So, but I do need to start pulling some of that. But we've got a couple of zucchini started. We've got some yellow squash down here. Hard to see in there. And I have seen a couple squash bugs, like occasionally I've seen like one or two, and I just squish them whenever I see them. So just keep an eye on the back sides of the leaves for eggs. We have Tromboncino squash next, which are gonna go absolutely everywhere. You can actually see one of them. That's one of the squash starting. so next row over is my herbs. Again, weedy, but producing, killing it. This is cinnamon basil. You can see some Japanese beetles are starting to come in and cause some issues. This smells so good, but this is my favorite thing ever now. This is lemon basil. I will never not have this in my garden. It smells amazing. I came in here and cut a bunch of this just the other day, and it's already like growing right back. But I cut a bunch of this and made lemon basil tea. Now, I was a little skeptical how basil tea would taste. Now, I think if I had made it with like regular Genovese type basil or something, I don't think I would have liked it. But this was so good. It was so tasty. I followed Jessica Sauer's Roots and Refuge, her basil tea recipe, and it was incredible. It was this beautiful, light, sweet drink treat. Oh, it's just so, so good. So I highly recommend it, and I'm going to try it with the cinnamon basil next. I cannot wait. Next, we have catnip, which I have heard I'm going to highly regret having planted in my garden. But I planted it for my cat. I shouldn't have planted it in my garden, I guess. Next, we've got sage and this weed. I don't know what it is, but it's everywhere in my garden. But got some sage here. I'm going to start harvesting herbs, a lot of herbs this week, and start drying them. I have just a drying rack to put them on. That's what I do to Japanese beetles. This weed is also everywhere in my garden. I let it go to seed last year. It's called pigweed. And it is everywhere. Oh, so many. Ugh. I can't even get them all. Parsley, again, I'm going to start harvesting and drying these this week. Next, we have a Genovese basil variety. I think it's actually, this is Emily basil, but it's the same idea. It's a Italian basil. This one does need to get kind of topped here so it doesn't go to seed. But I plan to harvest a bunch of this and just get it drying. And I'm gonna put them in jars, kind of grind it up and put it in jars for, using in recipes this winter. All right, so there's my lavender. It smells amazing. And I'm going to also dry some of this along with more chamomile. I have lots more chamomile to pick this week. Actually, I'm gonna pick this today and get it drying so that I can make lavender chamomile tea this winter. That is my favorite tea to drink before bed. It's absolutely delicious. So back behind the herbs here, this was intended to be a flower bed. I had gotten some flower seeds from my mom that were like, they were only a year old, and they were ones from like Home Depot, and nothing really germinated other than some nasturtiums, which I need to uncover here. But there are a couple of nasturtium plants, and that's it that came up from those flower seeds. Here's some more nasturtiums. So I've got a bunch of nasturtiums here. Everything else did not come up. And there's that pigweed going to seed. So gotta get that out. So next row over is kind of a fail. I had eggplant planted here. I had like 3 or 4 plants. I've got 1 left. Now the flea beetles were getting them, and they still kind of are. But they were growing still, so I was kind of like, whatever, it'll be okay. Well, then something just chopped the other ones. There's one of them, and there's the other. I don't know what happened. So I don't know that I'm gonna get any eggplant this year, which is fine. Next is Kajari melons. So I had forgotten that I had planted this spot. I had kind of just left it. And at one point in like a garden tour, I was like, oh, I have to plant this still. And then like the next day, a bunch of seedlings came up, and I'm like, what did I plant here? Could not remember. I threw in a ton of Kajari melon seeds because I've had a lot of trouble with getting them to germinate. And they're definitely struggling, so I don't know if I'll actually get anything, but I'm very hopeful because they actually are growing. So I'm really hoping to get something. I would love to have some Kajari melons. I've always wanted to get them. I've grown them multiple times, and they've never successfully grown anything or actually put on fruit. So we'll see. But most of the time it's just because they don't really germinate. Next, we've got some hot peppers. I forget which variety is over here. My label is gone. But I want to say it's like Tabasco and then Red Rocket. These ones are definitely Red Rocket. Putting on lots of blossoms. Yeah, there's the fruit. So I've got 1 Red Rocket plant, which I'm excited about because that's how I can make like a Frank's Red Hot type sauce. Next, I have ground cherries. I had more of them, but this is the only survivor. another nasturtium, and then I've got my okra. Now these okra were planted later than these ones, so that's why those ones are so much bigger. And we will probably start to get fruit quite soon off of these, and then they'll also just continue to grow. Some pretty sunflowers. I stuck sunflowers just kind of wherever I could this year. And then my cucumbers. I finally got my trellis up yesterday, or 2 days ago we got the trellis up. So I'm starting to train them to go up the trellis. Some of them are just not quite long enough to reach yet. Come on, little tendril. Hold on. Another day and that'll be ready. This all cucumbers. Some of them are slicing, or some of them are, so we have New York slicing 264. I think those ones are down there. And then these are either silver slicers or salt and pepper, which are both white varieties. Next row over is more peppers. I really need to take these flags out. I don't need them anymore. I just haven't come through and taken them out. But these are lunchbox variety peppers. I'm not sure which ones these are back here. These might be shishito. I'll be able to tell once they're actually producing. Yep, that's shishito. That's a shishito pepper for sure. Which we love, 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 love blistered shishito peppers in a garlic aioli. So I can't wait for those. Next are nadapinos. I can tell just based off of the coloring of the plant, that's what nadapinos look like. Then we've got California Wonder, which is a red sweet pepper. I love them. And they're starting to put on little babies. Then we have Yellow Monster, which is a yellow sweet pepper. Big, big yellow sweet pepper. I believe there's some sweet bananas back here. And then we've got jalapenos down at the end. A lot of my jalapeno plants got eaten multiple times. I actually had like 6 left, and then I bought some more, and that whole area had them, and they're all gone too. But we'll still get a decent amount of jalapenos from these. Peppers are doing decent this year. They actually were stunted. I think partly because when we had them in the basement as seedlings when I was starting them, the ones that I purchased obviously are doing really well, but the ones that I had purchased that I had started in my basement, our basement got really cool this year because we were using our wood stove as our primary heat source. So the basement was a lot cooler than usual. Normally, our furnace does help heat the basement some. And I didn't think about that when we had the wood stove going. So they were pretty chilly, and then we moved them out and they were fine. And then we got some really cool nights, like 40s. And I couldn't cover all of my plants, all of my peppers. So I just said, I guess we'll see how they do. And I think they're a little bit stunted, but they're coming back pretty well. So I'm pretty happy with them. Next row over is my snap beans, which are very close to producing. Lots of blossoms on them. We got these little itty bitty beans. But before we know it, we will be harvesting bushels of beans. So it's Provider green bean. I think it's dragon tongue bush bean in the middle and gold rush on the outside, or vice versa. And they are doing so well. They're all bush varieties, so they are kind of a set amount that they will produce, and then that'll be it for the year. But I mean, just look at that. They look amazing. So next is my tomatoes, which look a little sad right now because we just pruned them, and we prune them pretty heavily. My husband actually prunes them probably more than I do, but it'll help with airflow. We plant them fairly closely, trellis them up, and prune heavily so that we get a lot of fruit in a small amount of space. Although I do have 4 rows, it's not really a small amount of space, but I get a ton of fruit from them. So we've got lots of little babies. These are my favorite right here. This is Sunrise Bumblebee. It's a little yellow and orange stripy cherry tomato, and they're even pretty when they're green. This whole row, I didn't have my cattle panels up until just the other day, until actually I think it was yesterday. No, 2 days ago. I keep getting my days mixed up. So these are, this trellis was not up, and these plants were on the ground, and like you can see a ton of them have lots of roots that we're attempting to grow on the sides. This is just roots. If you ever see this on your plant, it's not your plant's growing disease or anything. That's just roots. It's what they do. They will root all along the ground. So these ones definitely rooted on the ground, and so they look a little funky. But now that they're upright, they'll do really well. Got some black beauties. So good, so good. These, I believe, are a big beef variety. Lots and lots and lots of tomatoes on these plants already. I am so excited. I mean, look at these, like, it's amazing. For us, normally we don't get our first tomato until like, it's actually ready until probably end of July. So these are pretty good. Next row over is our drying beans. These are cannellini beans, and then there's kidney beans partway through. It's like 2/3 cannellini, 1/3 kidney beans at the end. More tomatoes, just look at them. These are San Marzanos. Lots of paste tomatoes. My tomatoes are, again, I've talked about this, are all mixed in because I had a bunch of tomatoes die, so I kind of just stuck extras in where I had them. I believe this is probably Italian heirloom, just based off of the size, which is a slicer, or is a paste tomato that kind of looks more like a slicer. There's a big old cat-faced one. It is an heirloom variety, so cat-facing happens. Looks like Italian heirloom again, based off the shaping of it. These are some Brandywine, which will be pink. But just, I mean, they're doing amazing. These tomatoes are incredible. I'm very, very happy with how well the plants are doing this year. Again, more drying beans. These are kidney beans in here. More tomatoes. These are paste ones. So these are either Amish paste or San Marzano throughout the whole thing. You can see lots of San Marzano down there. My giant volunteer sunflower. I have not had sunflowers in my garden that grow this big, so I don't know where this one came from, but I love it. Now, I am not tall. I'm 5'3", so I'm a little short. But it's taller than me. And it grew overnight because it was as tall as this 2 days ago. So 2 nights. But it was as tall as this 2 nights ago. Incredible. Next, we've got more drying beans. These are black beans. Lots of drying beans this year. Trying to put up a lot of food for our family. Self-sufficiency type food. This food, what we harvest to eat, we also can plant for the next year. So it's kind of a double, seed saving and putting up food for us. This whole row should be Amish paste. There might be a San Marzano or two in there, just based off of, again, replacing some. Actually, this one looks, oh no, that's an Amish paste. Amish paste are big, beautiful slicer or paste tomatoes. I love them for sauce. They're probably my favorite one. Got a bunch of basil back here. My husband's like, oh, random pepper plant. I'm like, no, that's basil. So this whole area is a fail, right? This was supposed to be corn. Nothing really came up, or it came up really, really slow and just stopped growing for the most part. So this we just weed whacked down. I do have some squash over here that I had stuck in, but it's really hard to see them. So it's really hard to like get in here and weed whack around them. So if they don't do anything, it's totally fine. I also had wheat planted back here, and again, didn't do anything. This is a daylight drain for around our foundation, so we just leave it. I should weed whack that down though, so that those weeds don't go to seed, and then spread more weeds in my garden, because that's so what I need. So let's look at the other side of the garden real quick, up starting from the top, work our way down again. This is my potato bed, my potato area. Obviously there's lots of weeds, but I don't think the weeds are necessarily impeding anything, other than I can't hill anymore because the weeds in the walkways are so established that it would take me hours to try to chop this up. It's just not gonna happen. We are having a little bit of an issue with Colorado potato beetles, which I'm gonna see if I can find some. Some varieties don't seem to be bothered, and then other ones are like completely decimated by them. Let's see, so here we are. These are Colorado potato beetles, or potato beetles. I come through and I squish them and they turn your fingers orange. It's nasty, but it's easy. I mean, you can come through with like soap, like a soapy water, and like knock them into, but I just come through and squish them as I see them. You can, obviously, if you are okay with it using chemical pesticides, you could definitely do that. I choose not to, and I just deal with them by squishing them. And if I lose some plants, I lose some plants. Next over are our sweet potatoes, which I need to come through here and chop weed again. I did it once already, and it's right back. But here they are. They're doing really well. They're are a bunch of them through, and again, I just need to come through and weed. Today I came through and tilled this. This is going to be more potatoes. I have some Adirondack Blue that my mom had that they didn't eat and that went to seed, and they're not planting a garden this year. So I'm going to plant those here, and I did go ahead and order a few more potatoes from Baker Creek. They were on sale because it's kind of late in the season, but these are going to be ones that I'm going to harvest for a fall harvest. Potatoes, again, are one of those plants that they're really good for sustainability because what you harvest is what you would plant again the next year. You just let some go to seed, you know, let them sprout, and then you have seed for the next year. And those, the Adirondack Blue especially, store really well. So the fact that I'm going to have a second harvest of those, I'm very excited about. They should last pretty much until we would plant again the next year, if not even a little bit further. Because you can eat them after they sprout. You can eat potatoes after they sprout. You just knock the sprouts off and then eat them. Last but not least, is my squash bed, my winter squash. So I came through here, I did a video recently battling weeds. I've come through here and I stirrup hoed all of this by hand. Obviously you see there are still weeds and some are popping up through, and I'm gonna just have to stay on top of them until I can't. And what I mean by till I can't is till the plants spread out and cover everything, and then I just can't really do much about it. These are butternut squash, and then after that I don't remember exactly what's in what row, because I did at one point replant because I thought a lot of stuff didn't come up, and then after I replanted, more came up, which is why some of these rows are really close together, and it just kind of is what it is. They'll spread out and hopefully still produce. There are some that were planted a lot later that are really babies. These are ones, some of these have to be the buttercup squash that my mother-in-law likes, because I had to wait for the seed to come in. But I am going to come through here with some fish emulsion, liquid fertilizer, basically an organic one, and fertilize these to make sure that they get going so that they can produce in time to cure before, you know, our first frost hits. So as much as to many of you, I'm sure my garden looks like an absolute mess, full of weeds. Obviously this area, you know, that is really full of weeds, and some of my beds, yeah, they've got a lot of weeds, but this is probably one of the most maintained gardens I've had in a long time. I used to have a very small garden. We actually had our garden up here on this flat area, and when I wanted to expand, we decided to move it over here so I could have a lot more space. That garden I probably stayed on top of a lot more just because it was so much smaller. It was probably a quarter, maybe even less than a quarter of this size. So this size garden is really hard to maintain. It's hard to stay on top of weeds. I work 2 days a week. I've got my kids with me. If you can hear in the background, my husband is working the chainsaw right now. We use wood primarily as our form of heat in the winter, which we don't get to just wait until fall or winter to put up. You know, that is something we put up in the summer. So I have been splitting wood. I have been stacking blocks of wood. So that takes time too. And that takes some of the time away, and just life, got things happening. You know, soccer tournaments and all different things. But I'm staying on top of this a lot more than I ever have in the past, and I'm pretty proud of that. I am very happy with how my garden looks. I am very happy with how my garden is producing. I think I'm going to produce a massive bounty of food this year, more than probably I ever have, and I'm very proud of that. I am going to start seeds probably tomorrow for brassicas for fall planting, which I may use some of this space for depending on how far the potatoes go. But I'm very happy with how my garden's doing. I'm very happy with the production that I have this year. It's not perfect, but I don't expect perfect. If I had a whole team of people helping here in the garden, then yeah, it could look perfect, but I don't. It's just me. Again, my husband does help a ton, and I'm very thankful for that, but I can't stay on top of it all perfectly, and I think it looks pretty awesome regardless. So thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today. Remember, we're going today for a better tomorrow. Please like and subscribe, and join me on the next one.